Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I believe we are live. Hello, 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 mamas, moms to be, supporters, anyone else, professionals, non-professionals. Just want to say good afternoon to everyone. We're here again with an awesome presentation. My name is Lacey Dawson. I'm a physical therapist, wife, mother, and I'm also the creator of Jubilee Mama Empowerment, which is a support group for moms with infants and toddlers from birth to 3 years old, and also for those who are expecting, the moms that are expecting. So I'm happy again to come once again with an awesome live presentation. And we have a great guest here. Her name is Sierra Christensen. Hello, Sierra. Dr.
Hello.
Sierra, hello, hello. So I'm going to have her introduce herself, and then she is going to present to us child development and early intervention, which is something that's very important for all moms to know, and those who aren't even mothers as well, to see if our children are on track and if they needed services, how they would go about getting them. So go ahead and introduce yourself, Sierra, and then you can go ahead into your presentation.
All right. So first of all, I want to thank you for having me on as a guest speaker. I am honored. And like you said, I am Dr. Sierra Christensen. I am a pediatric physical therapist, and I have been practicing in pediatrics since 2014. And so these are kind of different tips that I've kind of picked up throughout the way. I've worked in different settings that kind of have given me a well-rounded view on things. I've been in outpatient pediatrics, schools, home health. So I've kind of had a wide range of experience. So so it's kind of given me different perspective on each of the different aspects of pediatric therapy in general. So I am a mama of 2 little boys.
Yay!
So Camden is 3 and Riker is 1.5.
Wow, yeah, awesome.
Yeah. Oh, it goes so fast.
Yes, definitely.
They definitely keep me on my toes. That's for sure. So.
I can listen. I'm in the same boat. I only have one, and I can only imagine what 2 would do. So
yeah, and like being that they're so close in age,
yes.
They either love each other or they're like constantly wrestling. I'm like, you guys shouldn't be doing that yet, but
yeah. It's all love. It's all love.
It is. So yeah, since I became a mom, I kind of just wanted to transition out of that full-time PT role. And so that led me to starting my own business called Develop Pediatrics. And I do telehealth, and then I also coach parents through baby development and things like that. So if any of you guys have further questions, just let me know. Yeah, and that's a little bit about me. Okay. So we can dive right into that presentation if you want.
Awesome. All right.
Okay. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about child development. So a lot of people kind of have a preconceived notion of what this is. And they think that, well, I don't need any more information on that because, kids are kids. Like, they're going to grow how they grow. But what people don't really realize is that it's really important to notice early signs that maybe things aren't completely on track. So, all right. So, like I said, this is me. I graduated from South Dakota State University in 2011, and then I got my doctorate in physical therapy from the University of Nebraska Medical Center in 2014. So, this quote I absolutely love. It's from the Center for the Developing Child through Harvard University. And it just says, in the first few years of life, more than 1 million new neural connections are formed every second. So that just really hones in on that vital time of early childhood. Because I was amazed when I learned this. I couldn't even believe that more than 1 million each second.
Right.
So I kind of like to start off by having you kind of self-identify where you're at on these sort of things. So are you a beginner? Are you just starting out learning about kids in general? Are you intermediate? Like, do you know some of the things that kids should be doing? Or are you advanced? Are you that baby whisperer, that parenting guru,
Yes.
that has perfect kids, and if that's you, maybe I should be asking you questions. So let me know afterwards. Um, so there are some basics of development that I kind of wanted to cover before we sort of delve into it a little bit deeper. So first of all, the foundations of development, we develop in a head-to-toe pattern. So basically that means that the baby first gets their head control, and then their trunk control, and then the lower extremities. And when I say lower extremities, that just means like your legs. And if I say upper extremities, that just means arms, hands, that sort of thing. And second of all, primitive reflexes are normally present in your term infant. So term being 40 weeks. I know that births after 38 weeks are considered full term, but I'm going to refer to it as the 40-week full term. And so basically those primitive reflexes diminish over the next 4 to 6 months. And then those lead into your postural reflexes. And those start to emerge around 3 to 8 months of age, depending on what we're talking about. And then if you do have those primitive reflexes that persist into early childhood, and then if you lack those postural reflexes, that's normally kind of a sign that something may be wrong. And so those postural reflexes are just the motor skills that develop early, and then they form kind of the foundation for the more advanced motor skills. And they are responsible for your movement through gravity. And so maintaining your position and your muscle tone, and then your response of your body moving through space as well. All right. So this is just going to be a very quick overview. I stuck to the what I consider the most important milestones for each age group. There are a lot more, and we're going to only focus on the physical milestones during this. But before we do that, I wanted to kind of just say a little disclaimer. So these are all recommended guidelines. They are validated by the American Academy of Pediatrics. But that being said, they are just behavioral and physical checkpoints in your child's development, and they're recommended guidelines. So what that means is it's giving you a suggestion of what your child should be doing at that age. And then you have to remember to account for prematurity. So if your child was born before that 40-week term, then you have to account for that. And then if you do notice that your child's missing any of these milestones, then you need to be sure to talk with your healthcare provider, whether that be your pediatrician or whoever you see for your well child. So what these can help with is it gives you kind of an idea of what other children are accomplishing at the same age.
Mm-hmm.
And so it gives you kind of an idea of what to expect and and kind of a benchmark to compare your child against, even though I know it's not good to compare, but it at least gives you something to go off of to whether or not there's a problem.
Right.
And so you can be advanced in some areas, you can be behind in some areas, and that's kind of the more individual development part of things, because each child does develop at their own speed. All right, so the motor milestones, and motor is just your large muscle groups, so the actions that you are doing, so like anything that require large muscle groups to do, so jumping, walking, sitting, rolling, pretty much everything that's an action verb can be a motor skill. And so this is 0 to 3 months. So you're looking for primitive reflexes, and it's going to be your moral reflex, your ATNR, and then the stepping reflex. And so primitive reflexes are just those involuntary motor responses that originate in your brainstem. It's present after birth and early childhood development, and it helps facilitate infant survival. That's the main point of the primitive reflexes. And these can be very important in the assessment of the infant. And they're eventually inhibited by 4 to 6 months as your brain matures and replaces them with the voluntary actions. But in certain neurological diseases, they tend to reappear. And so the moral reflex is basically what we call the startle reflex. So it happens when the baby is startled by a loud sound or movement. Even sometimes, a bright light can startle them. And so in response to that, they throw back their head and they extend their arms and their legs. They cry, and then they pull back into that flex posture. And I know that, like, if you're a parent, you've probably seen this before, that even their own cry can startle themselves. And so that's kind of why swaddling can help sometimes, because it helps them to not be startled by their own movements and their own cries and things like that. So that reflex lasts until 2 months of age. And then that next one is the ATNR. It's the tonic neck reflex. And it's often called the fencing position, because when you turn the baby's head to the side, their arm extends and then their other one draws in, and vice versa. And so that usually lasts until about 5 to 7 months. And then that last one, the stepping reflex, can also be called the walking reflex or the dance reflex, because it kind of looks like the baby is walking or dancing. So if you hold a baby with their feet on a surface and brush the tops of their feet, they're going to lift their feet in response to that. And that normally disappears around 2 months of age. All right. And then the next thing is just that flex posture. So in term infants, that's what we want to see, is that they're curled up, they have their arms and legs tucked in. But sometimes with our preemie children, they don't have that flex posture because they were born too early. And so you see them and their arms and legs are out more. They're more in what we call extension, with their head back, things like that. And so they need to mature a little bit more to develop that flex posture. And then active skills during this age range, they should be kicking their legs, moving their arms. They should be able to raise their head while they're on their stomach. And then they should be able to turn their head to both sides.
Mhm.
So for 3 to 6 months, we are looking at the primitive reflexes as well, but most of those are going to be integrated by 6 months. So at the end of this age range, they should all be kind of integrated. And when I say integrated, they should basically, for lack of a better term, disappear. They shouldn't be elicited anymore by the stimuli. And so then we're moving into more of the postural reflexes, which are the voluntary motor skills. And so the positive support reflex is the first one to develop. It's present by 3 to 4 months of age. And so when you place a baby with their feet touching something, they're going to extend their legs and try to support his or her weight. So basically, it's just, when babies really like to stand with you holding them, and then they actually start to bounce when they're older. But that's called the positive support reflex. And so by 5 to 6 months, they should be able to support their full weight. And then by 7 months, they should be, kind of bouncing up and down with that. And then one thing to watch for is that infants with motor conditions and diseases, they often will refuse to bear weight through their legs. And so they won't put their legs down, or they'll put them down, but they'll have like spaghetti legs. They won't bear any weight through that. And so that can kind of be an important indicator as well. And then the next one is the Landau. It is developing by 4 to 5 months of age. And so you're holding your baby in a Superman position, and then their head and their legs should extend past like a horizontal axis. So their head should go up and their legs should go up. And then these are all really important for developing independent sitting and walking. And so the last one we're going to talk about is the anterior propping. So this just means that they're going to extend their arms forward to catch themselves whenever they're losing their balance, so that they prevent falling forward. And then the active skills during this time, they're going to get better head control. They should be able to roll. They should be able to push up on their forearms when they're on their stomach. And then they should be able to pull the sit. So if they're grasping your fingers, they should be able to pull themselves up. And then prop sits, it's just using your arms to help them sit up. It's also sometimes called like a tripod sit. That's what we're looking for. And then they're also going to have smoother arm and leg movements as well. All right. So for 6 to 9 months, we're no longer looking at the primitive reflexes. We're just looking at more postural reflexes. So the lateral propping, same as the anterior propping, only this is to the side. So they're going to be extending their arms to the side to catch themselves. And then this can be an important indicator for hemiparesis. So basically, if they are having difficulties using one side of their body, they won't be able to extend that arm and stop their fall. And so that's a really important indicator as well. And then the parachute usually appears around 8 to 9 months. And that's when you're holding them kind of in that Superman, and then you kind of quickly tip them down so that their face is towards the mat. They should extend their arms as if they're going to catch themselves. And then, but prior to that, they will actually bring their arms back towards their body and not try to catch themselves.
Okay.
And so that's just kind of a cool way to see how our brain is maturing during this time.
Right.
And so that's one thing we're looking for there. And then we want to look for writing reactions.
Mm-hmm.
So those support the positioning of your head vertically in space, the alignment of your head and your trunk,
Mm-hmm.
and then your trunk and your limbs, so your arms and legs. And then, so your head writing, and that is going to align your eyes horizontally. So if I'm tipped this way, I want to automatically align my eyes so that they are horizontal. And then you also are writing the head on the trunk as well. And then you also have body writing, which helps with the movement around that body axis. And
Mm-hmm.
so that helps you with your anti-gravity positions. The equilibrium reactions help you gain your balance whenever your center of gravity is disturbed. And so those are more mature responses to regain your balance than the writing reactions. And then these also include your arms and legs. And that starts around 6 months, and it keeps maturing until you're about 4 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And then last, the protective reactions. They're required to prevent injury if your equilibrium reactions fail. So if you actually do lose your balance, the protective reactions are to try to stop any injury from happening.
Okay.
And so they emerge first to the front, and then to the side, and then last backwards.
Mm-hmm. Now, I have a question.
Yeah.
The doctors are supposed to be looking at this, right, as the child develops, looking at all of these reflexes and milestones and things. Because I know there were things, because I went, of course, to PT school, and we learned this in PT school. And there were some things that my pediatrician didn't, test. And I was a little like, aren't you supposed to be testing these things? These are important things to make sure that, my daughter's on track, and, to make sure that she's, growing and developing the right way. Do you find that when, you discuss these things maybe with your patients, parents, that it's a similar experience? Do you feel like the doctors are doing it, or some doctors aren't doing it? Like, what's your take on that?
Yeah, so that is a great question, because that is one of the things I'm so passionate about, and that's why I'm trying to bring more awareness to the
Yes.
importance of noticing these milestones and in getting early intervention if you notice something wrong, because I have noticed in my experience that whereas the doctors do screen, they only screen for certain milestones, right?
Right.
So
Right.
they only screen for, oh, hey, are they rolling? Oh,
Right.
okay. If they're
Right.
rolling, then they're fine.
Yes.
Or, or are they sitting? Oh,
Mhm.
okay, you're fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they also sometimes tend to take a wait and see approach,
Hmm.
and that's also not good.
That was my doctor. Yes. Wait and see.
Yeah, and this is exactly what I see so much. And honestly, there are great pediatricians out there. Like,
Absolutely.
I'm not saying this, I'm not painting everyone into that box. I'm just
Hmm.
saying that in my experience, I feel like the parents are going to have to be more proactive in knowing these things and
Right.
actually like advocating for their child, because the doctor maybe spends 5 minutes with your child during like a well child check, which is where they're screening for these.
Hmm.
And they didn't go into all of the education on all of these different things, kind of like we did. And so you may be a pediatrician, but they may not even be educated on any of this. So,
Hmm.
um, there again, I think it oftentimes sadly falls on the parents to know this, and to actually like fight for their child to
Right, right,
get get to the appropriate specialist.
right.
So
Exactly.
yeah, that's kind of yeah. That's one of my passions, is that, everybody gets the help that they need early.
Right.
Yeah, I just can't say enough about it, because there's been so many different conditions that I have discovered, and then I refer them back to their pediatrician, and then they were like, "Oh, yeah, I didn't notice that," or
Hmm.
"Oh, good catch." It's like, "No, no, no,
Right.
no."
Like that's, you're the first line of defense because,
Yeah.
you see the child first. There's so many things and like I totally get why you're doing what you do. You want to educate the parents, teach them so that way they can advocate, like you said, for their child because they are the child's first advocate. It's got to be the
Mhm.
parent.
Yeah.
The doctors can only go so far and a lot of times they're limited on their time. So they just
Yeah.
maybe they'll just like pick a few that they think are important or I can't speak for doctors, I'm just assuming that maybe that's what's going on
Yeah.
and maybe things are getting missed because there were things that were missed with my daughter.
Mhm.
So thank God I'm a PT and I understand what needs to be done, but you have the majority of the population that really doesn't, they don't understand, and that's why they need people like yourself that are pediatric PTs that can help them understand and kind of see clearly what's going on. So I thank you for all that you do. It's amazing.
No, it's
Yeah.
just it's something that I feel very strongly about, and I
Hmm.
think that all kids should have, the support that they need, and
Right.
unfortunately, a lot of them fall through the cracks, and
Hmm.
that's really sad.
Right,
So,
right, right. Exactly,
so
exactly.
yeah, like your
Yeah.
daughter was, yeah, blessed to have you as a mama.
Yes, yes. I'm
But
blessed to have her as a daughter.
yeah,
She's taught me
yes,
so much.
yeah.
So
Well, and
absolutely.
they
Hmm.
usually do, definitely.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
absolutely.
And so, just to kind of round off the year milestones, so your postural reflexes are going to integrate into your postural reactions.
Hmm.
And so, those are just the riding equilibrium and protective reactions. And then your active skills during this time, you're wanting your babies to creep on their hands and knees. And so creeping is actually what most people think of as crawling. And so crawling in our terminology is on your stomach, kind of that commando crawling, um, kind of the slithering
Hmm.
inchworm type of crawling.
Yeah.
But the creeping is the actual on your hands and knees.
Hmm.
And that's what you're wanting during this time. And then you want them to be pulling to stand at like furniture or their play tables or things like that. And then you want them to be cruising along furniture. So that just means kind of using the furniture to kind of sidestep different ways. And then they may be able to stand independently or take a few steps.
Hmm.
And then 12 to 18 months, your postural reactions are still developing because they're developing all the way up to that 4-year-old mark. And then you're wanting your child to walk independently. They should be able to roll a ball or fling a ball. It doesn't necessarily have to have very much accuracy or direction to it, but they should be able to get that hand back and fling it.
Hmm.
And then they should be able to creep up and down the stairs. And then they should be able to stand and then squat to pick up a toy or something, and then return to stand without falling. And that's all during the 12 to 18 month period. And then 18 to 24 months, so 2 years. This is kind of where I am going to cap it right here, just because that 2-year-old mark is where they are climbing, they're running well, they can kick a ball. And so when they're kicking a ball, they're really demonstrating that they're able to stand on one foot for a few seconds at a time. And then also jumping forward with both feet. And so that's kind of what we're looking for at that 2-year-old mark. And then there are, other things as well, but those are the major ones that I feel like you need to be aware of. And then here's some red flags. And so if you find that your child is demonstrating any of these, I would definitely talk to your healthcare provider. And then we'll go over kind of what happens if you don't get support that way. But the red flags are if they don't lift their head when they're lying on their stomach, if they only tilt their head to one side, or if they prefer to look to one side, if they can't control their head, if they're very wobbly with their head, if they don't put weight through their legs when they're held in standing, if they don't try to grab for objects that are within their reach, if they don't roll over in either direction, if they don't sit independently, and if they can't stand or walk at the age-appropriate time, or if they lose skills at any time. So if they've learned something and then they tend to, what we say, regress, if they lose those skills all of a sudden, really for no reason, that's a really important indicator. And then also, these two are very, very important. So if they seem very stiff, or if they seem very floppy, kind of like a rag doll, those are very, very important indicators that you need to get seen by a specialist.
Okay.
Yep. And then, so this is kind of the awareness and prevention part of it as well. And so, like I said, if you notice any of those red flags, you should definitely talk with your pediatrician. And you can actually call early childhood intervention, the ECI program. Every state has it. You can ask for a developmental screening through them independently, or you can seek a therapist outside to perform, further assessment in those states where you have direct access. So you don't have to go to a doctor to get a prescription for physical therapy. And so depending upon what state you live in, that's an option for you as well. So first of all, we want to be developmentally monitoring. And so that's kind of where the awareness of all of those milestones come into play. Also those red flags as well. And so the checklists are going to be really important for tracking your child's progress throughout their development. And then you want to track them by watching how they play, how they learn, how they speak, how they interact, how they move. And so knowing what to look for and what is considered typical is important to knowing how your child's developing. And so being aware of what is expected at each age is very important. Even though each child varies, it's still a predictable age range to expect. And then in addition to kind of going through those checklists, you want to write down any concerns that you have and be very specific when you're explaining this, so that when you do seek intervention or you are talking to your healthcare provider, you have specific instances on why you're concerned. And so really this can be parents, it can be grandparents, it can be early childhood providers. So if your child's in daycare or, whatever, or if there's other caregivers in their lives, if everyone is knowledgeable about these milestones and monitoring, we really can catch things early, and that's going to be for the best for the child. So we want to observe and track, and then we want to communicate any concerns early. and it's best not to do the wait and see. That's not good.
Right. Right.
And so, yeah, talk to your healthcare provider early, and then if you need intervention, then it's best to start early.
Mm-hmm.
So then after the monitoring, we kind of move into a screening of development. So this is normally done by your primary care physician, your pediatrician, or outside therapists if you went that route. And so this kind of just gives a little bit more in-depth look on how your child's developing. It includes some questionnaires. So like we were talking about earlier, like when you're going in for your well child check at certain ages, they'll be like, okay, well, is your child doing this? Is your child doing that? And those are considered screens. And then also sometimes they do some brief tests in person, as well as some different screens just to make sure that most movement is occurring.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third step kind of in that process is the developmental evaluation. So this is where if you have concerns, this is what you do. The answer is getting early intervention. So there's a lot of different activities, programs, procedures that can help children with any delays. Some do need to be administered by a healthcare provider, but then others are just simple things that you can do at home with your child, because you are with the child the most. So there is state-funded early intervention. It's a great service for children with developmental delays, and they get therapy services inside their home. And so they normally include, physical, occupational, feeding, speech language therapy. And it's a federally mandated program, so each state has it as well. And so any kids that are ages 0 to 3 that are exhibiting delays in any of those aspects are eligible for services. And each state is a little bit different on which children and which developmental delays actually qualify. And then some states actually offer free services, while other ones provide kind of like a sliding scale on your income and insurance and that sort of thing. And so you really just need to kind of go to your state and see what they provide. Normally, you can find that on the Center for Disease Control's website. So the CDC should have those resources available for you. And so if you find that your child doesn't qualify for early intervention, but you still feel like your child needs a little extra help, pediatric therapy clinics is going to be a really important wealth of knowledge for you. Most therapists can offer you a quick free screen to tell you whether or not they think that you should get a full evaluation. And then once you do get that evaluation, they can normally give you a home exercise program that you can do yourself, and then help get your baby back on track for that. And just FYI, for like the developmental screens, telehealth is great for the quick screens just to check in, like, hey, do I need to be worried about this? Or hey, like, I think you're all right. Like you might be a little bit more paranoid than you need to be.
Yeah.
And I'm saying that from experience. Like I know everything that can go wrong, so I am probably one of the most paranoid parents ever. But so that's why getting that screening though can help with your own anxiety, because then you can realize like, oh, I can kind of take a breath, like, or you can do something about it instead of just sitting there and worrying.
Right.
So
Exactly.
Yeah. So there's all kinds of different services you can get. And so what does the evaluation really look like? You're going to have a therapist that is taking a history, so they're going to be asking you a lot of questions. They're going to be watching how your child plays and how they move. They're going to kind of talk to you as a family and then come up with goals that you as a family and a team come up with together that's important for your family life. And they should all be functional in nature. So the goal is to see if your child does need help making progress in these life skills. A couple of things to note is your child can't be evaluated without your permission. Your input and your concerns are vital to the evaluation process, because that really drives the direction in which the assessment goes. And then third, you want to participate in the evaluation as much as you can by providing that thorough history, observing, and then prompting your child, if need be, to participate in the activities that the therapist is asking for. And then, providing any comments about like, oh, well, they normally don't do it like that at home, or, things like that, because those are going to be really important for the therapist as well.
Right.
All right. So here's our second opinion. So if you are thinking that something's wrong, don't be afraid to be persistent. If you think that something's wrong and your first healthcare provider is not really listening to you, or is taking that wait and see approach, or you just feel like something's wrong, you want to seek out a second opinion or find a therapy clinic and get a free screening. If your doctor tells you not to worry, that your child's going to catch up in time, that typically is a concern for me. And so it's best to get a second opinion, because evidence shows like it's so important to get early intervention. So, so you can ask your doctor for a referral to a therapist, or if your state has direct access, like we were talking about, you can go directly to one. And then you can also contact the early intervention programs if your kid is younger than 3. And if they're older than 3, you can contact your school district, and they actually have to grant you like an evaluation as well. And so as a parent, you need to trust your instincts. And if you continue to have concerns, you want to ask for another opinion, or if they've already been evaluated and you still feel like there's problems that they maybe didn't see, you can ask for a reevaluation. Not all providers test the same. Not all providers have the same experience. And, truly it can be even the day. So if your child's having a good day or a bad day, so getting a reevaluation is also an option for you. And then you can get further testing at that time. So the importance of early intervention. So we know that the brain is most flexible during the first 3 years of life. And that's kind of what that neuroplasticity is. It's when your child's brain is making all the connections that it needs for the rest of their lives. We know that it can affect their developmental trajectory. So basically, it improves their life outcomes, and it can reduce the incidence of future issues. And then also the effectiveness. So the quality of life is better when you get the support that you need at a young age. And then also it's more cost effective from all points of view. But that being said, it's never too late to get intervention. So the goal of the early detection is to have your babies learn the proper movement at the appropriate time of development, because there is actually research out there that suggests that it takes between 300 to 350 repetitions to build a new motor program. However, to retrain that brain and to rewire that, it can take up to like 3,000 to 5,000 repetitions to retrain.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
So it's much easier to do it right the first time than to try
Mhm.
to correct something after it's already been learned. And
Okay.
that's kind of where the bad habit thing comes in. You don't want
Okay.
them to learn bad habits.
Right. 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 Exactly.
Yep. And so please don't struggle alone. That is one of my another one of my things that I feel very strongly about is just there are resources out there to help you. People like me want to help you. Like we want to share our knowledge with
Right.
you. We want to give your child the best life they can have.
Right.
And so really just reach out and yeah. And so my website's there, and then the Thinkific is where I have my baby development course, so you
Mhm.
can check that out as well. And if you want like a more one-on-one customized approach, you can definitely get a consult with me. But yeah, and if financial burdens are an issue, um, we can definitely talk because I don't ever want finances to be the reason why a child doesn't get the help that they need. So,
Right. Right. Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Sierra. Thank you so
yes.
much. And also in the support group, if you could post, information on your course that you're doing
Yeah, yeah.
and your business and whatever other information, definitely, post it in the comments. And I'm sure if anyone has questions, they could either, message you directly because you're in the group,
Oh,
or your
perfect. Yeah.
information. Yep. And your information is here already. So if we post it someplace else, they'll be able to contact you. So I thank you so much. Is there anything else you wanted to add to presentation? Nope. This is it.
No, just
Anything else? Okay.
if you have questions, ask them.
Yes,
Lots of people
absolutely.
probably have the same question. So,
Hmm. Yep, absolutely. So it's very important. Moms, anyone else, please ask questions. Excuse me. Please ask questions. Don't be afraid. Advocate for your child.
yeah.
Talk to your doctor. Get that second opinion if you need it. And just try to push to get your child the best care that they can get. So that way, like she said, better quality of life for the child.
Yep.
And it's also cost effective, like she was saying. So that's it on our ends. I thank you all for listening. You can always, like I said, add comments in the support group in Facebook, or you can add comments also in YouTube. Okay, so that's it. And we hope you all have a wonderful day. Thank you all for listening, and God bless you guys. Have a great one.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye. Thank you,
Bye.
Sierra. Thank you.
Bye.